G'day Legends, I hope that you're doing well, and the news for today's Bakhmut is holding, although most sources are claiming that a fighting withdrawal is underway, with civilians still fleeing Bakhmut and reports of civilians being killed by shelling while leaving. A Ukrainian army representative, who asked not to be named for operational reasons, told the Associated Press that it is now too dangerous for civilians to leave Bakhmut by vehicle and that people had to flee on foot instead. Although this is very, very late to flee, as we have seen the situation worsening for months, and the reality of the situation there we know is dire. Also, 2 Ukrainian pilots are said to be in the US training on fighter aircraft. The West is ready to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and China declares it will not deliver weapons to Russia. But firstly, let's have a look at the maps. Now, as always, we have Ukraine, the capital of Kyiv, Romania, Moldova, Poland, Belarus, and around here, Russia. In the lighter red, we have areas Russia has taken since last year, the 24th of February, and the darker maroony purple bits, one day I'll figure out what colour that actually is areas Russia has taken in 2014, this being Crimea at the bottom. Now, what also needs to be said is Bakhmut is getting a lot of attention, but there is still fighting all along the front line, with the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine saying that in its daily bulletin that Ukrainian military had repelled more than 150 attacks by Russian troops over the past days in areas of Bakhmut, Liman, Avdiivka, and Shatarsk. Let's have a look in on Bakhmut and see what has changed. Today is the 6th of March. This update came out about 90 minutes ago for myself, being about 3 a.m. in the morning Ukraine time that these come out. So today's the 6th. Let's go back to the 5th. Load. So we have seen some small, slight Russian gain just to the north here, pushing to this waterway, and also to the northeast. You'll see just here this balloon out. Now, this is somewhat in line with what a friend of mine has said, that Russia's advance isn't on the 2 axes here to close off here. The advance is on this to bubble out, cutting off the areas in here and cutting off a possible withdrawal. But also what we've seen in the south is Ukraine take some territory back as well. Here, Russia falling back to this road or this waterway that comes through here. So there is still movement on this front line, and it is currently fluid. Now, we haven't seen much other movement along the front line. We did see some in Mariinka across the past 24 hours. So if we're here on the 5th and into the 6th, that Russia did make more of an advance towards Pobeda and this main road. And this road, we say, is important because this road leads directly into Vuhledar, which is where we have seen Russia launching many, many assaults, but having little to no success in that region. As well as Russia had some small advance near Nevelsky. So this is the 5th, and then to the 6th today has moved up through one of these more fields. So let's have a look as always and compare the map. So we have the Bakhmut on the deep state, and next to it here we will put the Rybar Russian sources map, and it is painting a very similar picture. So what we need to look at is some landmarks. So look at this reservoir here compared to this reservoir. It is showing very similar, as well as this large water reservoir here to the northeast of Kromove, which is in here, which the assessed territory taken is very similar. Now, interesting on this map, the arrows are showing Russia's advance, and the blue arrows are showing what they're saying Ukraine is doing. And what it is showing here, that is Ukraine is falling back from this side of this waterway here. This is the waterway to the reservoir, are falling back across into the center of Bakhmut, are leaving to the south of Kromove. Through here, we know there are a number of back roads and off-road regions, but also launching sort of counterattacks on the north and the south. So it is interesting of what we'll see over the next 24, 48 hours and what will happen, particularly amongst most sources are saying that Bakhmut is currently withdrawing. And Live UA Maps is painting a very similar picture, although it does show more region taken on the west side of this major reservoir here, which is in this region, little one, large one, little one, large one. Now, let's have a look on the ISW map as well, the assessed territory in around, and it is assessing that Russia has moved right up to this waterway here, which is somewhat in line with the Russian map, saying that Ukraine may have fallen back across into the centre, and that it is up to this reservoir here as well, which is in line as well with the Russian sources. That is the reservoir which was rumoured to have had the dam wall broken and flood in this region, although the actual evidence of that has been very few and far between, and the flow-on effects from that have been really unseen. It hasn't stopped really any advance. But that'll end our maps for today, and we'll get into the news. Now, we've speculated heavily about Ukrainian pilots may have been in the West training on fighter aircraft, with officials from both sides releasing counter standpoints. Some saying that there are pilots training and other officials saying that there aren't. So we didn't really know where that landed. But what we do know is in modern war, combined arms, which simply put is integrating different combat arms of a military to achieve a mutually complementary effect. So, you have infantry supporting tanks, tanks being supported by planes, planes supported by air defence, and so on. And what we do know is fighter aircraft are a big piece of this. And on this note of combined arms, this lack of combined mutual support and command competence on a large scale is what I believe ultimately led to Russia's initial assault failures in areas like Kyiv, not being able to bring these assets and elements of the Russian forces actually into the fight effectively. Well, now, according to 2 congressional officers and a senior US official, 2 Ukrainian pilots are in the United States undergoing an assessment to determine how long it could take to train them to fly attack aircraft, including the F-16 fighter jets, saying the Ukrainian skills are being evaluated on simulators at the US military base in Tucson, Arizona. An administration official also said the program is about assessing their abilities as pilots, so we can better advise them on how to use capabilities they have and we have given them. The 2 administration officials stressed that it wasn't a training program and said that the Ukrainians would not be flying any aircraft during their time there. So I guess this gives us an answer, at least, that the US has not been previously training pilots, although this doesn't leave out the possibility of other nations training Ukrainian pilots. It said that another 10 Ukrainian pilots will arrive soon for this familiarization event. US defense officials have said that the training could be shortened to 6 or 9 months on the airframe, but as we've talked about, if the decision to provide aircraft and training has not yet been made, that potentially the fighter jet capability could still be a year or more away. Fighter capability a lot more than just the pilot. The pilot is one piece to the puzzle of all the support crew. Also, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who has been heavily criticised throughout this conflict for delaying some deliveries, although Germany is the second largest contributor to Ukraine, has said in an interview with CNN yesterday that Western nations are ready to give security guarantees to Ukraine once the conflict is over. The thing is, no one knows the outcome of this war yet. He says we'll continue to support Ukraine with financial and humanitarian aid, but also with weapons. Also saying withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine must be the basis for any peace talks. In the last few weeks, senior US officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, have expressed deep concern that China could provide weapons to Russia, which we know China has a massive and a capable military-industrial complex, and this would change the war dramatically, not only in capability increase, but the globalization effect of this war. Equivalent sanctions on China would affect wider than the ongoing sanctions to Russia. But also China's reliance on Western tech and natural resources brings their length of support into question. Scholz is speaking at a press conference with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who told reporters that the EU had received no evidence so far from the US that Beijing is considering sending lethal support to Moscow. This doesn't mean that evidence doesn't exist, they just simply haven't got it. Scholz has said, we all agree that there should be no arms deliveries, and the Chinese government had declared that it would not deliver any either. He continues with, I think it would have consequences, but we are now in the stage where we are making clear that this should not happen, and I'm relatively optimistic that we will be successful with our request in this case. But we will have to look at, and we have to be very, very cautious. The EU Foreign Policy Chief, Joseph Borrell, apparently received similar private assurances last month. Borrell told reporters that China's top diplomat, Yang Jie, told him in a private discussion at a Munich security conference in February that China will not provide arms to Russia. But he did add, nevertheless, we need to remain vigilant. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you're having a great day and a great start to the week, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.